One of the things that I sometimes do is do a gardening slot at the end of Mastery Path. And the gardening slot is just a little snippet of something to sow seeds, to give you some food for thought. And I just want to start with something that I might normally end with, and it's just a quote that's attributed to Disraeli. When he talked about what you could do for other people. And he said that the best gift that you can give to someone else is not just to share your riches, it's to help them reveal their own. And I think that's what Hub's about in some way. It's about helping other people find their own riches and what they can do, because it's all got to be self-sustainable. As I say, Deb will talk about Hub in a bit. So my journey, how did I get here? I got here by car tonight from Haywood. However, it started about 2006 when I got introduced to NLP. So how many people here know about NLP? Okay, I'm going to actually write it down. I remember when somebody mentioned it to me, I couldn't even get the letters in the right order. What is it? What? LNP, what? It might as well have been Nuevo Linguine Pasta. It could have been anything. It didn't mean anything to me. And since then, it's meant a lot to me. I've learnt a lot from it. And it stands for Neuro. Still say it in an Italian accent, can't you? Linguistic Programming. There's two M's in it, isn't there?
Yes.
Yes, because we are English, aren't we? Okay. So neuro, what does neuro mean? It means lots of different things to different people, because most words do. But it's to do with the brain, isn't it? Or the nervous system. So we get that bit. Linguistic, my goodness, that is a broad field, isn't it, linguistics? What does it mean to you, linguistics? Language. Let's just put language in. Language. Language is how we what? Communicate with people. How we talk to people, we use words. And what else do we use? What's that, Paul? Paul doing this? Body. Body language. So we've got words, we've got body language. And programming. Sometimes people get a bit upset about that. We are programmed, aren't we? We're programmed. And it's the way we're wired up. So I just want to look at sort of where that comes from. Where does our programming start? I think it starts when you're born. Where do you think it starts?
I think it starts before you're born.
Do you? So when you land here, you're already programmed.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just draw this. This is a face. I'm going to tell you what this is before I draw it so you'll know. That is a face. So somebody's landed here. And to all intents and purposes, you are a blank canvas at that point, to a certain degree. So what actually informs you? Where do you get sort of anything that you know from? What happens? How do you start to learn? Surely it's got to come from outside. Is it all the external things that happen to you? So what influences what you believe and how you're programmed? What kinds of things influence you?
Family.
That's right. Family. Yeah. Media. What else?
Teachers.
Teachers.
Environment.
Yeah.
No. School teachers. Friends.
Friends. What about religion?
Yeah.
Even sort of class. There's absolutely loads and loads of things outside there that influence us. All this information comes into us, goes in there and does something, and then comes out in certain kinds of behaviour and belief systems. And that belief system that you've got goes back round again and goes back in, doesn't it? And what's happening in here? All the information that's going in. Do you think it's doing what?
Well, it's setting up a whole series of instructions,
Yeah. Yeah.
codes that you're going to follow.
I believe at any one time we've got over 2 million bits of information coming at us. 2 million bits of information. And we're only able to take on board about 134 bits. Do you think we're all going to get the same bits of information? Where Paul is, looking this way, Is he receiving the same information that I am, looking that way? So just put your hands out like that and imagine that you can catch 134 bits. Right. Are your bits that you're catching the same as Deborah's over there? No. So we're not all seeing the same thing, are we? And what I find fascinating is that whatever's happening out there has no meaning in and of itself. It's the meaning that we put on events, circumstances. It's our meaning, and where do we get the meaning from? We get it from our experiences. So we become programmed, and we respond in a certain way. So going back to the language is really important because it helps us communicate. So we communicate with other people, and who else?
Ourselves.
Yes, we communicate with us. So do you think it matters what we say to ourselves? Absolutely it does. I don't know who it was that said this, but apparently if you do something long enough you become very, very good at it. So if you're saying something to yourself that doesn't serve you, you'll become very good at whatever it is you're telling yourself. If you constantly tell yourself, I am not good at this, you'll become very good at believing you're not good at something. And I'm going to go back to being at school. And I know Jill knows exactly what happened here because I think there's about 6 of us in the same maths class.
Yeah.
And if you asked any of us about maths, we'd say, rubbish at maths.
Yeah.
We're rubbish at maths. Can't do maths. It became programmed into us. That could have something to do with the way we were taught, didn't suit our style, but we told ourselves that over and over and over again. Until now I know that I am good at maths when I want to be, if I want to be. It's a matter of choice, isn't it? So what you say to yourself really, really matters. You've heard it over and over again. What you think about, you bring about. So what you're thinking and saying to yourself has an effect on your outside world. Have you noticed that some people sort of focus on sort of what they don't want? And do they get more of what they don't want? I think we're absolutely insane. I think we're fascinating. Why do we focus on what we don't want instead of what we do want? Even the language we use, we're asking people to not do what we don't want them to do instead of focusing on what we do want them to do. So I just want to do, how many people were here when Darren was here, Darren Eden? Because we did something with the arm then that showed that intention sort of makes a big difference, what's going on. I want to do something slightly similar to that. Jim, you can help me here. I'm going to stand in front of me, and all I want Jim to do is pull my arms apart. That's easy to do. I'm just going to put my fingertips together, and you put your hands on my wrists, and then when you're ready, you can do it a bit harder than that. Yeah. Just pull them apart. Okay. So I'm not resisting, and Jim can pull them apart. This time I'm going to put them together again. And just give me a few seconds and then I'll give you the nod and then you can try and pull them apart. Okay. Pull as hard as you want.
I'm full ready now.
Pull.
I am pulling.
Harder than that.
I don't want to break your watch.
Take the watch off if you want. The difference there, what's the difference? Thank you. What's the difference there? What is it? Yeah, that's all it is. So what I want you to do, I want you to do it with each other. I want you to do that now so you can experience the difference. Find a partner and stand opposite somebody and put your fingertips together. And the first person, right, put your hand up if you're A. You're the person pulling. A's pulling, okay? Just put your fingertips together. Has everybody got another person? Fingertips together. So person A, put the hands on, and B, let them just pull it apart. Just do it. Just let them. And then, right, and then B, who's got the hands together, just think, steel bar, 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 over and over again, so that you know when A pulls, there is no way those hands are coming apart. And then when you're ready and you know that, give them the nod and let them try. And then when you want to give up, you nod again. And go again. Now swap round. Do it the other way round. Just do that the other way round. Let the other person put the fingertips together. Let them do it the first time. And then do that thought thing. And when you know they're stuck together like a steel bar, give them a nod. Excellent. You know how to go at that. Just go sit down, well done. Does that prove the point? It does, doesn't it? What you think about is incredible. What you can do with your mind is incredible. And we've got two minds, or people might say we've got more than that. You've got an unconscious mind that runs an awful lot of the programs that we exhibit. And the thing about your unconscious mind, it's actually here to protect you. It is your friend. It wants you to do well. It wants to look after you. It's very simplistic, very childlike, very playful, and it doesn't get negatives. It does not process negatives. When I found this stuff out, I was having a really, really difficult time with my teenage boys. And I couldn't get them to do anything I wanted. And I spent my time saying things like this. Anybody here got teenagers? Work with them, know them, were one, are one, have children? Right. This is what I would spend my time saying. Don't. Anything else that you might say to a teenager? Don't.
Forget the homework. Can't be like that.
Says the voice of experience. What did you say, Elaine? Don't forget your homework? Okay. If your unconscious isn't hearing that, and we cross it out, every time we cross that out, what are we saying? Be late, leave your room a mess, get drunk, talk to me like that, forget your homework. It's incredible. You're actually doing that. And don't you think that's ridiculous? Because actually, you do think that's ridiculous, don't you? That's how we program our kids from being tiny. These creatures that arrive, these blank canvases that are not programmed, don't understand any of these negatives. Tiny, tiny, tiny babies, they're reaching out and what we're saying, don't touch, don't do. You must have seen little ones when you're saying to them, don't touch, they're almost doing it. As you're saying it, can't hear the don't process the don't. It's not what they're hearing touch. The trick for me was to ask for what I wanted. This is the part. How many times, just think now about what you ask for. Are there any areas of your life or people you deal with where you're saying, don't? Are you actually asking for what you don't want rather than what you do? Be on time is what I wanted. Leave your room tidy. Stay sober. Actually, talk to me like that's alright, depends on what, doesn't it? Do your homework. Remember your homework. It's being conscious of what we're going to say. One of the things I think that happens is we get so caught up in day-to-day life. We don't be present. We don't get grounded. We don't take time to think. And it just comes out of our mouth the way we've been programmed. And we're going to get more of what we've already got. Because if we keep on doing what we've always done, we're going to get what we've always got, aren't we? So when you want to see something outside you change, it has to start with you. And that's what I call personal power, when you realise that. Instead of looking at everyone else to change, do something inside out. Does that make sense? We live in a society, I think, that's very good at blaming other people. Would you agree? How many times have you heard people say, well, I would have been successful if it hadn't have been for my ex, I would have done this if it hadn't been for my business partner, I would have, you know, all the things that they can say they would have done if they blame it on somebody else. So being in this place of blame, does it feel like being a victim? Everything's happening to you. I do think a lot of people in society spend the time blaming and complaining. And if we spend too much time in BC, we'll never get to AD, because AD is achieving the dream. Stay on that side of the equation. You'll never get what you want. It's when you own what's happening in your life, when you realise at some point you're at cause. You're the start of everything. So being at cause is really important. Be on this side. Be at cause and take responsibility. I love that word, responsible. It means being able to respond. You're responsible. Able. That's even better. It's instead of being, we react. What happens in an argument if somebody says something, the other person reacts and the other person does that, and it just escalates into this horrendous, out of control, whatever argument. If you take the time to be present and respond, just be a bit measured, you will get a response back rather than a reaction. You are in control. You've got far more control than you think you have. Being at cause gives you that control. I don't know why I've got this flip chart so low. Could have been higher, couldn't it? You're then in control. I think it gives me a confidence. And if you look at the word confidence itself, if you've got a confidant, you actually will share secrets with somebody, won't you? It's somebody you trust. So self-confidence means trusting who? You. And if you can't trust yourself, who else are you going to trust? I think it's really important to realise that confidence means that when you're calm, in control, you've got this confidence, you can make a big impact on what's happening out there. We've all got meanings attached to things. When we go back to just looking at that drawing, whatever goes on inside, we delete stuff, we get rid of it, we distort things that happen, we generalise things that happen, because we couldn't possibly contain all that information and keep processing it. Generalising things works well as we're growing up and learning, because it would be really, really complicated to sort of have to think everything through every time we saw something. Once a child knows what a chair is, they sort of grasp it, haven't they? Something that looks vaguely like that with four legs that people sit on as a chair, and the chair might not look exactly like it, but you've got the idea. You learn what a cup is, you've got the idea. What can happen, and tends to, is that we generalise it with people and events. Because it's happened once in the past, it means this. It's a generalisation, isn't it? And anybody here guilty ever of doing that? Oh, they always do that. Always hasn't happened yet. You know that, don't you? It's just the way this works inside our head, our mind, whatever you want to call it, generalising stuff, deleting it and distorting it. And you will delete stuff that's not important to you, that's very important to somebody else. You distort things in a way that suits you, your learning style, your way of looking at the world. I want to talk about control or power. I don't mean in a manipulative way, or maybe I do, but I think there can be good manipulation. They can, can't they? What do the guys who do your back do? Don't they manipulate? What are they called? Thank you very much. So that's a good manipulation, not a bad manipulation. It depends. NLP, I've heard people say they don't like it. It is manipulative. It can have had a bad name. It depends on the experience. It's a tool, it's a technique, it depends how you use it. Scalpel's the same thing, isn't it? In somebody's hands it can be life-saving, yeah, or it can be a weapon. So it's, in and of itself, it depends who's using it. So it's really important to realise the meaning is yours, isn't it? When we communicate by saying things, and often by what we don't say. So what just happened there?
You showed us signs of boredom. You wanted to be somewhere else.
That's your interpretation, thank you, John.
You were noticing times passing.
Perhaps somebody else might think I've forgotten what to say next. It depends on your experience, that's all I'm saying. What happened was I did not speak for a few seconds. That's what happened. What did it mean? It depends on how you interpreted it. It's all about that, isn't it? And I think this is really important in relationships, to remember that when I go back to my teenagers, my boys, I would put meaning on what they've done instead of just looking at it and going, that's what they've done. It doesn't mean this. And giving people chance. And we're very ready sometimes to jump in and make a story up. And it is a story a lot of the time. If we could just be there and look at something. On top of that, it's a good idea to look for the good in things. It's easy, isn't it, to sort of, doom and gloom and woe is me and things are going wrong and there can't be anything good in it. And I find what happens is, a long time down the line maybe, when you've got hindsight, you realise it was a good thing. And I believe that everything unfolds exactly the way it's supposed to. It might not feel like it at the time. It is. I now know, even when I went through that hideous divorce that was absolutely awful, and I thought it was the worst thing that could have happened, I couldn't have been in a worse place. I had no money, no house, no car, no job, no support, no maintenance, no emotional, physical or practical help whatsoever. It was absolutely awful. So I just sort of went down and down and down and got depressed, very depressed, and didn't think I'd ever find a way out of it. Something happens and you pick yourself up and move on, and it got better and better. And then somebody told me about NLP, and that's another long story that I'll do on another time. And I went and did my course, and it's led me to this place where I've never been happier. I have never had such a good relationship with my boys, with anybody actually. And I look back and think that divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. So how many people here have got something in their life they can look back on now and know it was the best thing? Excellent. So it really is important to remember it. Right, there we go. So we're on the cause side of the equation, aren't we? We're in control of our life. We can not change other people, we can't change the events and circumstances, we can change how we respond to it. So one of the things that we do when we want something to be our way is to remember no don'ts. Ask for what you want, not what you don't want. And because I love language, I'm fascinated by it, and I know what a big part it plays in the results you get. We've just seen that, haven't we, with the arms of steel. What an incredible difference it makes what you're thinking about. So, how many people here ever say, I've got to? I have to. I should. I ought to. So if we're saying that to other people and ourselves, we're thinking it. And Einstein said that we're actually confined and boxed in by our thinking. And I believe that's true. Change these thoughts and you get outside that box and you can see the world in a different way and live a completely different life. You do know, don't you? You don't got to. Do you? I want people to realise that they've got a choice, and actually you already know that. You know you've got the choice to do whatever you want. When you are on that core side of the equation, when you know that everything's your choice, you're in a much better position. The end result might be the same thing. The difference is the language. Now, your unconscious mind is eavesdropping all the time and taking on board all this stuff. And it isn't any good for you. It's when you realise you don't got to, you don't have to, you are choosing to. You choose every single thing that you do in your life, don't you? Say yes.
Yes.
If it's true, I mean. It's interesting because I did a talk actually in Alkrington at the community centre, and there was a lady there when I was explaining this that wasn't very happy with it, and she said, I don't choose to do what I'm doing at all. I've got to go to work. So it's, why do you have to go to work? I've got to earn money, I've got to pay the mortgage. You don't have to, you're choosing to. So I haven't got any choice, I have to go to work, I have to do this. I want people to own the choice, because it gives you freedom then. You can still do it, you can still say, I am doing that. There is a massive difference between saying, I go to work because I want to, because I want to earn the money, because I want to pay a mortgage, to have a house, and it's a completely different thing. This word, should. Should. Don't you think it sounds horrible? It actually comes from an old English word to scold. And I think you can hear it when you're saying should. Think about how you feel when somebody tells you you should. Do you like it? So, when we're telling someone else they should, do you think it works well for them? Who do we tend to tell should? Kids? How do we know what they should do? How do we know what's best for them? We are not them, we have not been there. We've got a wealth of experience we can pass on, and it's wording it in a different way. You're immediately putting barriers up. Communication is about connecting. So if it's children, if it's people at work, if it's your other half, if you want to communicate on a really, really good level, you need to connect, yeah? All the forms of communication we've got. If we go online, what kind of communication, what kind of linkage thing have we got? This technical talk, this. Broadband or dial-up? Is it broadband or dial-up? Are they the two different ones? What's dial-up? Is it slow? Is dial-up the slow one? And then we've got broadband, and that's faster. So that's the kind of communication that's technical. We do it with people. Do you ever meet people and think, that connection is a bit more like broadband than dial-up? Do you know what I mean? That's when you've got rapport with people. Does that make sense, John? It depends how you feel, and it's when you get in rapport with people you make a better connection. Has anybody got a mobile phone? Just on them. Oh, there's one, right there. Okay, just give me that mobile phone, I need it a minute. Okay, right, yeah, I'll probably be home about 10 o'clock. No, it doesn't matter about that. All I want you to do is to, yeah, put the kettle on, that'll be fine, that's great. Thank you. Who got that information? Who got the information?
I got kettle.
Say it again,
I
Debbie.
just got kettle.
Yes, but who would have got that information if that was a phone call?
Probably your partner or your nearest.
Even doing it like that?
No.
Is there a step I missed out?
Yeah, please.
Even before the please?
Hello.
Or you can ask them what they would be able to.
Absolutely right. You know what else I didn't do? Turn it on, press buttons and connect. That ain't going nowhere.
It's upside down as well.
There you go, and it was upside down. Would that have worked? See how technical I am. So what we need to do, if we want our communication, if we want our message to get through to people, anybody, let's press some buttons, let's press the right buttons, let's connect, and then you can deliver it. So a lot of the time with teenagers, it's really difficult when you feel disconnected. It can be with people at work, it can be with partners, it can be with anybody. You feel that disconnect. and the information isn't going to be delivered well, it isn't going to be received well. So how important is it to make sure we've done that first step? It is important, isn't it? To make sure we've already got the connection and we can deliver. Putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is a good idea as well, and looking at the world through other people's eyes. So we can get rid of these ideas and feel better about knowing we've got choice. With my boys, I remember thinking a lot of the things we did was absolutely awful and it drove me insane, and I would start a lot of the things I said to them by, don't do that, don't do this. And the one example I'm going to give you is Eden. Eden, when he was about 13 or 14, would come home with his pockets full of rubbish, treasure, rubbish, paper, crisp packets, broken lolly sticks. And the bit that absolutely fascinated me were the broken bits of protractor or set square. I don't know where they come from, but they'd be in his pockets. Bits of gravel, Cheerios, all sorts of things. So consequently, when I went to put the washing machine on, it would break, it would get, it drove me insane. And I was constantly saying, don't leave rubbish in your pockets, don't do this. And then, this is the magic formula for asking for something, getting what you want in a good way. I talk about looking through rose-coloured spectacles. I think it is important. It takes time to stop and look at it in a different way and find the good, because there is always good in a situation. Interestingly enough, my eldest son, he had a brain hemorrhage when he was 10 years old, and he's disabled, and it's his left side that is very weak and he doesn't use very often. So a few weeks ago, he spectacularly came off his push bike and he's broken his collarbone. And I've never seen a break like it. It's instead of being sort of straight, it's like that. It's just, so his shoulders come in and it's a really bad break. My mother was going, oh God, that's awful, that's terrible, that's horrible. And yet, on one hand, it could be viewed that way. The good side of it is, he started to use his left side. His weak side, the part that he didn't trust, that's been in a sling, so he started to use that. So that's a good thing, isn't it? So if you actually take the time and look at things, you can find it. It might take a while, but there is always a silver lining. It's really important. So going back to the rubbish in the pockets, I like to sit there and think, what's good about this? I know. Eden brings his rubbish home. He's not throwing it on the street, that's great, that's a good place to start. Now, because the unconscious mind is very childlike and playful, it likes compliments. So I say to Eden, I'm really pleased that you bring your rubbish home. Unconscious mind, listening. And the next thing, the old me might have said, I'm really pleased that you bring all your rubbish home, but. Anybody ever use but? I believe butts are for sitting on. So make sure you sit on all of yours. I'm really pleased that you brought your rubbish home, but what happens? But's a negation. It just crosses out everything that you've said before, everything. And there's another word that is 3 letters, and. I'm really pleased that you bring your rubbish home, and. Oh, I'm still listening, now you're going to tell me something else. And is like a building block, isn't it? It's a positive. And you can still say exactly the same thing with an and. What about saying to somebody, I really like you, but? That's really got a child who's done a picture. They bring you this picture, this fantastic picture, and you might say, that's very nice, but, people have actually got 5 fingers, not 3. You've just taken away any compliment that you've given them. That's a really nice picture, and if you wanted to make it a bit more realistic next time, you could draw people with 5 fingers. You can still deliver the information, you can still pass it on, just change your but to and. So going back to the litter in pockets scenario, I'm really pleased that you bring your litter home. And what would make it better is when you empty them here. And the difference there is the old me might have said, if you empty them. That gives choice. I actually don't want him to have choice on this occasion. So I'm going to implant this when you do it. So if you change your ifs to whens when it's suitable, you can see the difference, can't you? You can see what you're implanting when you do it. Unconscious mind listening, I'm going to do it, and it's just a matter of when, it's not if. So all this that came from NLP for me is sort of how I base the whole way of looking at my language with the boys. I'm really pleased that you bring your rubbish home, and what would help me is when you throw it away next time, because you really like helping me, don't you? Depends how sarcastic we want to be, or how cheeky. That's a really magic word, because we automatically expect that we're going to get some facts after it. You say because, you get a reason after it. And the unconscious mind doesn't actually listen to what's coming after it a lot of the time. You say because, and people have already sort of, be with you. You try it in a supermarket, or you've got maybe a few things and you want to go in front of somebody else, and say to the person in front, do you mind if I go in front of you because I've got the wrong shoes on today? They'll go, yeah, that's fine. And having the wrong shoes on has got nothing to do with anything, but they're not listening to it. Not listening to that because you've said because. If I say to Eden, I'm really pleased that you bring your rubbish home, and what would help me is when you throw it away when you get home, because you really like helping me, don't you? We just call that a tag question. You put that on the end of something, and it gives you, it's like putting the ball back in their court. Does that make sense? It's like asking them, don't you? And a good thing to do is the body language with it, isn't it? In the language, it's Moravian model of language, we've got 7%, 38% and 55%. The breakdown of communication. Apparently only 7% is the words. 38% is the tone, you say something, and 55% is the body language that goes with the information. So body language can be crucial. It's also interesting, I think, worth remembering that it doesn't always mean something that somebody's told you it means. It doesn't always mean what you've experienced in the past. A lot of people think that if you've crossed your arms that you're being really defensive or you're being closed off. A lot of the time I close my arms, I'm just bloody cold. It's not anything else, it's no more than what I'm feeling, so it's just being aware of what you put the meaning to. Have you ever noticed anybody do the opposite of what they're saying with the head? I have. People look at something and say, do you like that? And they go, yeah, that's really nice. The head's not saying the same thing. It's just really fascinating to understand about language. So if I want to implant what I'm saying with Eden and saying you do, don't you? It's funny when you start nodding your head and you're talking to someone, very often they start nodding their head back, don't they? So there's an awful lot of power in the language to get the result that you want. I just think it's really fascinating to look at what's happening in your life, to look at the language. Yeah, and just be aware of what we're actually doing. It's nearly 5. So what time do you want me to?
Until 10 past.
Oh, we've got another 15 minutes.
That's it if you want to.
Yeah, I was going to say I was going to do it till about 8.
Yeah, well, whenever.
So this makes sense, doesn't it? That we've got a whole sort of structure around language. So do you think there's any areas in your life where you're using the don'ts? Loads. So give me an example of some don'ts.
Oh, things like that you're meant to be doing, and we'll say, don't forget to do,
Yeah.
fill in that form tomorrow. Forget to fill in that form.
So it's really just important, isn't it? To sort
Or
of
don't forget to make that phone call.
Yeah.
And that is the very phone call of the day. I did that phone.
I think it is. It's just important to look at your life and your relationships and where you want to make the change. And it takes time. It doesn't sort of happen overnight. But it's just fascinating that it comes from you, from within. Before I went away and did my NLP course, I had a fridge magnet that said, you know, you must be the change you want to see in the world. I loved it. It's the Gandhi quote. I didn't get it. I really didn't get it at all until I came back and thought, it's me. I can look at things in a different way. I need to start looking at things in a different way, to find the good in them, to see what's good about it, and to appreciate it and be grateful. It makes a big difference. The unconscious mind is incredible. And a lot of the time, I think it's 90%, is it? 90% unconscious, 10 conscious, or even less. It depends sort of where you get your figures from. But if we're only sort of operating 10% consciously, and 90% is being driven by unconscious programs, it's the unconscious programs that would help if we change them. Does that make sense? If we change those, you can see a big difference. You do know you've got an unconscious mind, don't you? Who's brought theirs with them? God, nobody. That's scary. Not one person got their unconscious mind with them. We do so many things out of conscious awareness, don't we, when we get used to it? Things that become habits. How many people ever drive somewhere and then just go, don't you know? Yeah. What I think is fascinating is that your unconscious mind has kept you safe as well. Because if anything were to happen, you'd have snapped out of it. That's like going into that sort of light trance. And you're still safe. And your unconscious has been doing it. We do so much unconsciously, it becomes habit. Do you consciously wake up and think, okay, I'm going to send a message to muscle 31 in the big toe to move and muscle 36 in the calf? And we don't do anything consciously on that level. It just becomes unconscious. We're incredible. We've got so much that we can sort of use our unconscious and tap into it. The language part of NLP is just one side of it. It gave me much more than that. Because I did the hypnotherapy as well. I use hypnotherapy. And timeline release, which I find fascinating. Who's experienced timeline therapy here? It helps get rid of negative emotions. And emotions really are only energy and motion. And we've all got this energy moving around all the time. And negative energy gets blocked in different places. And we can clear that out with timeline therapy. It works away these blocks of negative energy. Everything's energy. Everything's connected. And it's just fascinating to realise that your emotions are just this energy in motion. So timeline helped me, and it got rid of... I'd just gone through a hideous divorce, so the first time I did it, all my negative emotions were around my ex. And I've done it with all the issues and people. And it's got me to a place of peace and being calm and accepting and just evaluating life and seeing what's really happening, knowing that I put meaning on things. Has that helped? Has it given you an idea of how powerful you are? You do know you're powerful, don't you? You do know you've got your own control. You can choose to do whatever it is you want to do. You've got infinite possibilities. Haven't you, Rhonda? It's a matter of choice, and it's remembering that. Anybody want to ask me any questions?
Karen, what's been the most useful thing that you've actually applied with your boys?
Has to be the language. It really has. The interesting thing as well is it sort of all comes together in one big whoosh sometimes, and it all just made sense. When I went on my NLP course, I had the most phenomenal experience with parts integration. Who's experienced parts integration? And it's where I was having a massive conflict. And this is another technique that you use in NLP. My conflict was doing a job I hated, absolutely hated it. I was selling space in for British publishing, cold calling, hated it, and needed the money. So it was a case of, on one hand, I really don't want to do this anymore, and I know I've got the choice to let go, and it's really difficult because it gives me the money. So the parts integration gets the parts to come out, and then you say for what purpose and what's the highest intention of both parts, and they get integrated together, and it's wonderful, and it resolves the conflict. Mine was quite spectacular because we got the bad part to come out, and anybody who's done it, you know, that usually looks like a character. Looks like a strange character. Mine just looked like a blob of grey matter moving around on my hand. And then we look at the good side of it, and that could be somebody that looks beautiful, or you in a really sort of nice dress, looking fantastic. Mine was just a shaft of light that went right through my hand. And then when we started to chunk up, the only thing that I got was God. My hands came together, and the light went inside, and then I knew who and what I was, and what I could change. So everything that I learned that weekend just slotted into place. I knew it was all down to me, that I could make the change. So going back home, I was just so excited. In fact, when I walked through the door, Eden, the youngest, went, "Wow, Mum, you're like a supernova, you can do anything." And I went, "That's right." And it was fabulous, it was really good. Then the practical side kicked in, Deborah, and that's when I went back and looked at notes and thought, right, what do? I stopped saying don't, I stopped saying but. I do these tag questions and all sorts of magic language. It gives you fabulous control. And the other one that's great, it's great with anybody, it's the double binds. When you give them supposedly choice, but it's with children. What time would you like to go to bed tonight then? 8 or 8:30? 8:30, that's great. Okay, they have no choice. 8:30 is when I wanted them to go to bed. They think you've made a choice. You're giving them some power while you're still controlling it. Careful what choices you offer them. And I just found it's all worked so incredibly well. The boys were late teens, even in the 20s. With Hallam, one of the things that he asked, he wanted to go to this party and stay out. And I know the old me would have said, "Oh, I don't want you to do that, you'll get drunk." Or I might have said, "Yes, you can go, but be in at such a time." And the difference of your language just gets a different response. It's massively effective. So looking at things in a different way. And for me, I've let go of the boys and sort of what I expect. It's their life. It's their choice. It's not my life. I don't want to sort of be, living mine through them. It's giving them the choice and letting them sort of choose. That's what, whatever they come to do.
Sounds a bit scary,
I guess it can be.
because actually handing over empowerment.
They've already got it themselves. We've all got our own, haven't we? You can suggest things. You can still guide. And knowing that they'll learn what they need to learn from it.
Yeah, and come back, yeah.
But it's taking them back, as you were saying earlier, to the cause, and knowing that if you're making a conscious choice, well, every choice has a consequence.
Yeah.
It
So
has
if
an
they
outcome.
choose something inappropriate, then they'll live with that choice that they...
And I think from, our point of view is to not look at it and go, "Oh God, I told you that would happen, I knew this would happen, this is awful," which is often where my mum is with things. That's her sort of view of the world. I'm thinking, well, they needed to learn something from that.
And they have,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fascinating. So I'm just going to leave you with a story that I know some of you have heard about the young couple that got married. And they're in the kitchen one day, and she's looking out the kitchen window, and she's looking at next door, and they've got the washing out, and she's saying, "That washing's filthy, that's ridiculous, they don't even know how to wash properly, that's rubbish, I wouldn't have that on my line going on with myself." And a few days later she comes down and she also sees washing out. She says, "Do you know what? She doesn't know how to wash properly, somebody should tell her, that's awful, I don't want to be seen living next door to washing like that." And a few days later she comes down and she looks out and she goes, "Oh, it's clean, that's amazing, somebody must have told her." And her husband says, "No, I got up early and cleaned the windows." That's perspective for you. On the 26th of June, I'm going to come and do a workshop here, a full Vision for Life workshop a full day of getting your vision for life, teaching you how to have one. So many people don't have one. They sort of get up and let life happen to them. How you can change things, look at life in a different way, lots of tools and techniques, and actually look at your own issues practically and properly and turn them around so that you can see the change you want to see.
Karen, can I just ask one thing?
Of course you can.
You know when you're saying you can make a choice and you decide to do something, what happens if there's a problem with motivation? It's kind of like should comes into it a little bit as well. You decide to do something, but you know you should be doing something one day because you want to get something achieved, but there's a bit of a battle going on there. Is that
Sometimes.
timeline? Is that what that would help?
It depends. What do you call it if you're not doing something that you want to do and you're putting it off? Stuck, procrastinating, putting it off. The incredible thing for me is that your unconscious mind's doing it for a reason. Everything that it's doing, the underlying programs that you run are actually there to protect you, to keep you safe, and for a good reason. So just say, for the sake of the argument, it's you want to do something that scares you a bit, you might be scared of failure, you might even be scared of success. There's something a bit fearful about it. You may not even be aware of it consciously, but unconsciously you are. So you put it off and you put it off and you put it off because of what might happen. Does that answer your question? Does it? Because your unconscious is always protecting you whatever it does. Even though you may do something that's a bit silly, you won't get it. It's coming from that place. Does that help?
Yeah.
Good. You're very welcome. I think I'll hand you back to Deborah.